What does your science classroom look like on a typical day? Do you have students discussing topics with each other? Are they working on a lab or a project? Maybe you're teaching and they're taking notes. So welcome to part 2 of 3 of our classroom management series. All right, aloha teacher friends. I'm Fleur. If we haven't met yet, I am the face of Aloha Monday Teaching, and I help middle school science teachers be intentional, prepared, and refreshed so that you look forward to Monday and any day by providing strategies and support and encouragement. So today we're talking all about classroom procedures and routines. So first, be sure that you go to www.flairstrongole.com/daily to get your free guide, 5 daily must-do routines to run your science classroom like a pro. There we go. And don't miss a thing. So be sure you like and subscribe. You can like this video, subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss out on any other videos. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Aloha Monday Teaching. And you can also get my weekly newsletter when you get your free guide. So classroom procedures and routines are important to establish at the beginning of the school year and maintain throughout the school year. So this comes from the blog post, 3 Essential Components for Science Classroom Management Plus Strategies. So this is part 2. In the first video, we talked about building a safe and positive classroom community, which you can find that link in the description below. And now it's part 2, and we have one more after this. So here are the 3 strategies that we're going to talk about today when you're building your classroom procedures and routines. So strategy 1 is classroom setup. So if you have an actual science classroom with lab stations, you are so fortunate. I am lucky that I have one too. So I have student desks. I have 36 or so of them. And I have 8 lab stations with sinks. You can see this is a picture of my current classroom. If you have a traditional classroom, it's still possible to have a great setup. You just have to be more creative with your space. And I talk about that in another blog post, which I've linked below as well, because I've had a classroom like that. So when you're setting up your classroom, think about where your students will work independently and with groups or with partners. Have a plan to store your materials and how students will access those that they're allowed to be using. Desks should be arranged in a way that incorporates your goals for interaction. So like you can see here in my classroom, my desks are in rows, but they can easily move them together to form groups. So I set them up so there's groups of 4. You can see it right there in the picture, and that way they can work together. The second strategy is routines and procedures. So you could literally list every single procedure and routine you want to teach. And that's actually what I do. I do that at the beginning of every school year. I think of everything a student would need to do during the day, like sharpen a pencil, empty a backpack, turn in work, walk to the other side of the room for something, ask a question, talk to a partner, work on a lab, get a drink, and so on. The list is long, but it is so important to have a procedure in place for everything. And if something comes up that you didn't think of, it's okay. Just make a routine for it on the spot, or be flexible and honest. Let them know that right now, this is what we're going to do, but it may change. And that's okay to change it. So when you know the procedures that you want to do, teach it to the students. Have them practice it. Reinforce it when they're doing it well. Correct it when they're not. In Harry Wong's book, I'm sure you've read this, First Year Teacher, he says to practice things for at least 2 weeks. So you can do it even more, but review it with the students if they forget, they're not doing the procedure correctly, or just throughout the school year if it needs adjustment, or even when a new student comes in, because they'll need to know the procedures too. The third strategy has to do with expectations and consequences. Some like to call it classroom rules. I call it expectations. Clearly, you have to be clear, you have to be consistent. You can have students develop some of these with you, but I think it's better if you do it yourself and you teach it to the students. And it's also helpful to let students know why you have certain expectations. So, for example, one of mine is that they cannot leave the room without permission. I mean, it's a school rule, but it's also one that I enforce consistently, and that's because of safety. They know that that is because of safety. I need to know where they are. When it comes to consequences, I teach the students that there's natural consequences for every type of action. It could be positive or it could be negative. So when it comes to behaviors, I have consequences. I have certain ones that I use. So here they are. They're listed here on the screen, and they vary depending on what the student does. So my smaller consequences are maybe the student has to sit out of the activity or work alone or work with a different group, or maybe even just talk to me in the hallway, and then they usually correct their behavior once you do that. My moderate consequences are emailing or calling home. Sometimes you can have the student do that email, like they type the email or they make the phone call. That's even more powerful. Or if you can have them work during your lunch or their lunch. And my more serious consequence is the school consequence, where they go to a room for timeout. And an office referral is the most serious, and that's really for more extreme things. So that's not as common. But when you have a positive classroom community and you've set clear expectations and you're consistent, rarely will you need to administer the moderate or serious consequences. So I've written a blog post about this topic as well, and I linked it in the description also. All right, so we briefly went over 3 strategies for setting up your classroom procedures and your routines and expectations. So be sure to check out those other blog posts and videos for more on those topics. So what are some procedures and routines that you have in place in your science classroom? Go ahead and just reply in the comments below. I'd love to see what you do. And remember to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything. And go to fleurstrongoli.com/daily for your free guide, 5 daily must-do routines to run your science classroom like a pro. Useful any time of year. All right. So in the third and final video of our classroom management series, we will be talking all about creating engaging lessons and activities. So until then, thank you for joining me and for watching today, and I will see you soon.